Stay informed, stay ahead. Subscribe now to USA Fresh News.
Today in USA Fresh News. Good morning, America, and welcome to your essential update on this Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. In a stunning escalation of the war on drugs, President Trump announced a second U.S. military strike on a Venezuelan narco-terrorist boat in international waters, killing 3 suspects and seizing tons of fentanyl bound for our streets. Domestically, the White House deployed 500 National Guard troops to Memphis to tackle soaring crime rates, sparking debates on federal overreach in urban policing. At the Federal Reserve, drama unfolds as an appeals court ruled to keep Governor Lisa Cook on the board, amid Trump's bid to oust her over alleged mortgage fraud, just ahead of tomorrow's pivotal rate cut meeting, while Stephen Miran sailed through Senate confirmation as a new governor. Heartbreak grips the nation with vigils for slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk, shot at a Utah rally, fueling online backlash and job losses over inflammatory posts. Internationally, NATO jets downed Russian drones over Poland, heightening Ukraine war tensions, and Israeli strikes hit a Hamas compound in Qatar. In sports, the Bengals edged a win but lost Joe Burrow to a foot injury, while MLB's rookie Nick Kurtz smashed a record grand slam. Weather alert. A stalled front brings heavy rain risks to Florida and the southeast, with above-normal heat lingering in the west. As markets brace and communities mourn, this is your pulse on the nation. Stay informed. Stay safe.
So let's see, or listen. All right, let's dive into the heartbeat of America today, September 16th, 2025, where the headlines are sketching a vivid portrait of a nation at a turning point. We're kicking off with the major U.S. stories that are commanding attention from every corner, stories that touch our lives with tangible stakes and consequences. First up, the bold escalation in the war on drugs as President Trump announced a second U.S. military strike on a Venezuelan narco-terrorist boat. Imagine this. In the early morning hours, Navy SEALs and Coast Guard cutters targeted a speedboat packed with over 2 tons of fentanyl off Curaçao, taking down 3 suspects in a precision raid. Trump stood at the podium, his voice ringing with resolve, calling it a critical strike against a cartel network he ties to Maduro's regime. This haul was headed for U.S. streets, where overdose deaths have surged 20% this year, hitting hardest in places like Ohio and West Virginia. For families who've lost loved ones to addiction, this feels like a step towards safety. But the economic ripple is immediate. Tighter sanctions on Venezuelan oil could nudge gas prices higher, pinching your wallet at the pump, while disrupted drug routes might inflate street costs, straining public health systems by millions. The fallout's already stirring debate. Across CNN, Fox, and AP, the story aligns. This ramps up U.S.-Venezuela tensions, a nation on the brink but still a geopolitical headache. Look back to the Reagan-era drug wars. Tactical victories like this often brought diplomatic headaches, and today's no exception. The State Department signaling tougher sanctions, which could jitter global oil markets, while Russia and China, Maduro's backers, are flexing muscle. For the everyday American, it's a trade-off. Potential relief from drug floods versus higher costs for fuel and groceries. The military hails it as a win, but breaking the supply chain at its root remains a challenge without deeper intervention, a move Trump's sidestepped so far. Next, let's head to Memphis, where Trump deployed 500 National Guard troops under his Operation Safe Streets initiative. This city's been a crime flashpoint, with homicides up 30% year over year, fueled by gang conflicts and a flood of illegal guns. The Guards partnering with Memphis PD, patrolling high-risk areas like Orange Mound with armored units and checkpoints. Trump frames it as a law and order revival, echoing his campaign vows, and some local business owners see hope. Safer streets could draw more customers to their small shops. Yet, the mayor's voice carries caution. This risks militarizing a community where trust in police is already shaky, especially after the 2023 Tyre Nichols incident that shook the nation. The price tag? $50 million for the first quarter, drawn from DOJ grants, which might boost tax revenues if crime dips, but could invite lawsuits or boycotts if tensions rise. For residents, it's a lived reality. Parents are adjusting school routes, kids are missing extracurriculars, and the atmosphere's thick with uncertainty. Compare it to the 90s LA deployments, temporary crime drops, but without social programs, the gains eroded. Here, the balance between enforcement and community healing is the tightrope Trump's walking, a decision that could shape his urban policy legacy. Will this bridge divides or deepen them? That's the question lingering over Memphis tonight. Now, turn to the Federal Reserve, where a legal and political showdown is unfolding with stakes for your finances. The Senate confirmed Stephen Miran as a new governor in a 48-27 vote, a Trump ally who's chaired the Council of Economic Advisers. This is groundbreaking. Miran's the first sitting executive official to join the Fed board, stepping in on unpaid leave, and his pro-growth lean suggests bold rate cuts at tomorrow's meeting. That could mean easier loans for your next car or house, a boost for small businesses in Texas or Florida, still battling inflation. But critics, including some Democrats, see it as a threat to the Fed's independence, a bedrock of U.S. monetary stability since 1913. A too hasty rate drop could reignite inflation, hitting retirees on fixed incomes hardest, a risk that's got Wall Street on edge with a 0.2% dip in Dow futures today. Then there's Lisa Cook, the Fed's trailblazing first black woman governor, caught in a fierce battle. Appointed by Biden in 2022, she's championed policies tackling racial wealth gaps, leveraging her expertise in housing and innovation. Last month, Trump sought to fire her, citing a federal housing finance agency probe into alleged 2021 mortgage fraud, claims she listed 2 homes as her primary residence for better rates, a felony if proven. Cook's team calls it a fabricated attack, pointing to records suggesting a clerical mix-up, and she sued, arguing Trump can only remove governors for cause, not for pre-tenure issues. A D.C. district judge blocked the firing last week as unlawful, and today, a 2-1 D.C. Circuit ruling upheld that, with the dissent questioning the stretch, but the majority safeguarding the Fed's apolitical shield. Trump's team is racing to the Supreme Court to oust her before tomorrow's vote, where her cautious stance could balance Miran's push. The implications? A Trump win could let future presidents purge the board at will, shaking global dollar confidence. Bonds rallied today, but markets wobbled. For you, it's about stability. A steady Fed keeps your rent and grocery bills predictable. Cook's struggle also highlights a cultural clash. Diversity versus loyalty, playing out in real time. As tomorrow's decision nears, her voice might steer prudence, or Miran's could drive a growth surge. Either way, your financial future hangs in the balance. Finally, the heartbreaking loss of conservative activist Charlie Kirk at a Utah rally. The 32-year-old Turning Point USA founder was shot dead by a lone gunman during a speech in Orem, with 2 others wounded. Vigils are lighting up Utah and beyond, as supporters decry a backlash that cost dozens of jobs after old inflammatory posts resurfaced. The suspect, a 24-year-old with mental health struggles, left a manifesto citing personal grudges tied to Kirk's rhetoric. Schools are boosting security drills, and Trump's floated arming teachers, a polarizing echo of past debates that energizes his base but worries educators. The cost? $20 million for nationwide security upgrades, diverting funds from education. For families, it's a raw wound, fueling calls for mental health support over arms. This tragedy mirrors America's deep divisions, a story that's more than news. It's a reflection of our soul. As we close this first chapter, these headlines weave a tale of action and tension. The drug strike's a bold move with uncertain ends. Memphis, a test of order versus community. The Fed, a battle of principle and power. And Kirk's death, a stark reminder of our fractures. Tomorrow's Fed call could reshape your wallet, while these events mold our streets and screens. Stay with me as we explore more layers. Now, let's peel back another layer of this unfolding day. moving beyond the headline-grabbing U.S. stories to the secondary but equally significant threads that shape our world. We're diving into the economy, diplomacy, and policy arenas where decisions today echo into tomorrow, affecting everything from your paycheck to global stability. First, let's talk about the economic tremors rippling from Washington's trade desk. The U.S. Commerce Department just slapped a 25% tariff on Chinese steel imports, a move Trump's team says protects American jobs in the Rust Belt states like Pennsylvania and Ohio. This follows a year of heated negotiations, with China accused of dumping cheap steel to undercut U.S. producers, costing thousands of jobs since 2020. The tariffs kicked in at midnight, and early reports show U.S. Steel's stock jumping 4% in after-hours trading, a lifeline for workers in Pittsburgh who've seen plants shutter. But the flip side? Construction costs could rise. Think higher prices for your next home renovation or a new bridge project, since steel's a backbone of infrastructure. China's already promising retaliation, hinting at tariffs on U.S. soybeans, which could hit farmers in Iowa hard, where exports to China dropped 15% last quarter. Historically, trade wars like this, echoing the Smoot-Hawley tariff of 1930, can spark global slowdowns, and economists are watching closely as the dollar strengthens, up 0.5% against the yuan today. For you, it's a balancing act, job security versus higher prices at the store. On the diplomatic front, NATO's response to Russian drone incursions over Poland is heating up. Last night, alliance jets downed 3 drones near Wohin, the second such incident this month as Russia tests Western resolve in the Ukraine conflict. NATO's calling it a deliberate provocation, and Secretary General Mark Rutte is in Brussels today, pushing for a unified front. The downed drones carried surveillance gear, suggesting Moscow's mapping Polish defenses, a move that's rattled markets with European gas futures up 3% on fears of escalated energy disruptions. For Poles, it's a daily anxiety. Air raid sirens tested this morning in Warsaw, but it also boosts defense spending, with Poland's $5 billion order for U.S. Patriot systems announced today. Globally, this tightens the U.S.-Europe security knot, but it risks dragging NATO deeper into a proxy war, a concern voiced by neutral Sweden. The economic angle? A stronger NATO presence could mean more U.S. arms sales, a $10 billion boost for Lockheed Martin, but also higher taxes to fund it. Shifting to policy, the Biden-era Clean Energy Act is facing a major overhaul under Trump's administration. The EPA unveiled draft rules today to roll back subsidies for solar and wind projects, redirecting $3 billion toward fossil fuel innovation, like carbon capture tech in Texas oil fields. Proponents argue it secures energy independence, U.S. Oil production hit a record 13.5 million barrels daily last month, while critics, including green groups, warn it stalls the shift to renewables, with solar jobs in California dropping 8% this year. The move's tied to Trump's America First energy push, but it's got global eyes. COP30 talks in November could see U.S. leverage weaken if emissions targets slip. For you, it might mean cheaper gas in the short term, but long-term climate costs could hit insurance rates, especially in flood-prone states like Louisiana. Historically, energy policy pivots like this, think Reagan's oil deregulation, boost GDP temporarily, but often leave environmental debts. Internationally, the Israeli strike on a Hamas compound in Qatar adds another layer of complexity. Overnight, IDF jets hit a Doha site linked to Hamas financing, killing 4 operatives and seizing documents on terror networks. Netanyahu's framing it as a preemptive strike against threats to Israeli citizens, aligning with U.S. intelligence shared during Senator Rubio's recent visit. Qatar, a U.S. ally hosting a major airbase, is furious, recalling its ambassador and freezing mediation talks on Gaza. The economic fallout? Qatar's $200 billion LNG exports to Europe could face delays, pushing gas prices up 2% today. For Middle East stability, it's a gamble. Hamas vows revenge, and Iran's shadow looms larger. The U.S. is mediating, but this could strain alliances, with everyday implications like higher shipping costs for goods you buy online. Back home, the Department of Homeland Security rolled out a new immigration pilot in Arizona. Starting today, 1,000 migrants at the Yuma crossing are enrolled in a work permit program, aiming to fill labor shortages in agriculture and construction. It's a shift from Trump's hardline stance, driven by pressure from agribusinesses losing $2 billion annually to worker gaps. Supporters say it's a pragmatic fix. Farmers in Yuma are already hiring, but critics, including Border Patrol unions, warn it could encourage more crossings, with apprehensions up 10% this month. Economically, it could stabilize food prices if harvests improve, but the political heat is on, with rallies planned in Phoenix this weekend. For communities, it's a mixed bag. Jobs versus security concerns, a debate playing out at kitchen tables. And finally, a cultural policy note. The National Endowment for the Arts faces a 30% budget cut proposal, saving $150 million but sparking outcry from artists in New York and Los Angeles. Trump's team calls it trimming fat, redirecting funds to infrastructure, but theaters and galleries warn of closures, with 5,000 jobs at risk. The cultural loss, think local plays or museum exhibits, hits tourism, a $70 billion industry, while the savings might pave a new highway. It's a trade-off between art and asphalt, echoing the 80s culture wars, with your next vacation or tax bill feeling the shift. These stories weave a tapestry of global and local forces. Trade tariffs test economic resilience, NATO's moves shape security, energy policy pivots affect your energy bills, Israeli strikes ripple through markets, immigration pilots balance labor and borders, and arts cuts reflect cultural priorities. Together, they're the undercurrents of our day, shaping a world you live in. That's the rundown. More to come.
Sports. Hey folks, buckle up because today's sports scene is buzzing with that electric mix of gridiron grit, diamond drama, and global athletic feats that remind us why we love the game. On this September 15, 2025, as the leaves start turning and the air crisps up, we're deep into NFL Week 2 action, MLB's playoff push, and echoes from the just-wrapped U.S. Open in tennis, plus some soccer sparks and Olympic prep chatter. Let's break it down, weaving in the cultural vibes and economic muscle that make these moments more than just scores. They're cultural touchstones and billion-dollar industries shaping our world. Starting with the NFL, where the league's $20 billion media empire is once again proving its dominance. The Kansas City Chiefs held off a feisty Baltimore Ravens squad 27-24 in a Sunday night thriller, with Patrick Mahomes threading a game-winning touchdown to Travis Kelce in the final minute. Pure Mamba mentality on the gridiron. Over in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles crushed the Green Bay Packers 34-17. Jalen Hurts racking up 280 passing yards and 2 scores, solidifying their status as America's Team 2.0 in a league where merchandise sales alone hit $4 billion last year. But the heartbreak, the Cincinnati Bengals fell to the Jacksonville Jaguars 23-20, with Joe Burrow sidelined by a nagging foot injury that's got fantasy owners panicking and Bengals tickets dipping 5% on secondary markets. Burrow's absence underscores the NFL's economic fragility. Player injuries cost teams an average of $100 million in lost revenue annually, yet they fuel the drama that packs stadiums and spikes jersey sales. Culturally, these games are rituals. Tailgates in Arrowhead Stadium foster community bonds, while the Chiefs-Ravens rematch harkens to the Lamar Jackson-Mayhems rivalry, a modern-day Montana saga that transcends football into pop culture lore. With Week 3 looming, the Buffalo Bills' upset win over the Miami Dolphins 31-28, Josh Allen's 300-yard masterpiece positions them as AFC contenders, reminding us how the NFL's parity keeps 32 teams viable, pumping $15 billion into local economies via tourism and concessions. Over in MLB, where the $10 billion industry thrives on summer nights and October dreams, the playoff picture sharpened today with clinch scenarios galore. The Los Angeles Dodgers locked up the NL West with a 5-2 victory over the San Diego Padres. Mookie Betts going 3-4-4 to clinch their 12th division title in 15 years, a feat that's boosted LA's GDP by $500 million in tourism alone this season. In the AL East, the New York Yankees edged the Boston Red Sox 4-3 in a classic Fenway slugfest. Aaron Judge's 50th homer of the year, sealing it and sending waves through the Bronx. where Yankee Stadium attendance surged 8% amid the playoff buzz. Rookie sensation Nick Kurtz of the Arizona Diamondbacks smashed a record-setting grand slam in a 9-4 rout of the Colorado Rockies, his fourth of the season, tying a franchise mark and earning him NL Rookie of the Month honors. A story that's got scouts buzzing and endorsement deals flowing as MLB's youth infusion counters an aging fan base, injecting $2 billion in youth league investments. Economically, these late September games are gold. Ticket prices average $150, but black market flips hit $500 for Dodgers clinchers, while the sports cultural cachet from Field of Dreams, nostalgia to diverse stars like Kurtz, a Jewish phenom, keeps it woven into America's fabric, fostering inclusivity in a $100 billion global baseball economy. Tennis takes center stage with the U.S. Open's men's final aftermath. Still fresh, Jannik Sinner outlasted Carlos Alcaraz 6-4, 7-5, 6-3 yesterday in a three-peat Grand Slam showdown, claiming his second major of 2025 and the world No.1 ranking. The Italian's poise under Flushing Meadows lights, with 45 winners and 0 breaks conceded, cements his rivalry with the Spaniard as tennis's new Federer Nadal, drawing 1.2 million viewers and spiking ATP Tour sponsorships by 15%. Culturally, Sinner's win resonates in Europe's soccer-mad nations, bridging the sport's $5 billion industry with broader appeal. Alcaraz's gracious post-match hug went viral, amassing 50 million views and underscoring tennis's role in global diplomacy. Economically, the Open generated $500 million for NYC, with Flushing's multicultural crowds highlighting the sport's growth among diverse demographics, from Harlem clinics to Queen's academies. Soccer's not slacking, with the English Premier League heating up midweek. Manchester City blanked Arsenal 2-0 at the Etihad. Erling Haaland's brace extending their unbeaten streak to 15, a result that's got bookies adjusting odds and City's $1 billion brand value soaring. The Norwegian's 20 goals in 10 matches make him a $100 million transfer target, fueling the $50 billion global soccer economy. In MLS, LAFC topped Inter Miami 3-2. Lionel Messi's assist magic, drawing 25,000 fans and boosting Apple TV subscriptions by 10%. As soccer's U.S. surge up 20% in youth participation, mirrors cultural shifts toward inclusivity, with Messi's influence rivaling LeBron's in crossover appeal. And the Olympics. While Paris 2024's glow lingers, today's buzz is on 2026 Milan-Cortina prep. With us, hockey projecting rosters featuring NHL stars like Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid, a roundtable debate sparking fan forums and ticket pre-sales. The IOC's $8 billion revenue from broadcasting underscores the game's economic clout. But culturally, its unity and action-diverse athletes like Simone Biles inspiring a generation. With Olympic viewership driving $2 billion in fitness industry spikes, these highlights aren't just games. They're economic engines and cultural mirrors, from NFL's heartland rituals to MLB's immigrant tales, tennis's global rivalries, soccer's borderless passion, and Olympics' aspirational fire. As September rolls on, the stakes rise: playoff chases, transfer windows, and medal dreams keeping us hooked. What's your take? Who's your MVP pick?
Weather. Good morning, folks. Let's turn our attention to the skies and the ground beneath us, where the weather's painting a dynamic picture across the United States. It's time to unpack the national outlook, zero in on extreme events, draw some historical comparisons, and explore the social and economic ripples that follow. This isn't just about grabbing an umbrella. It's about understanding how the weather shapes our lives from coast to coast. Let's start with the big picture. A sprawling weather system is dominating the eastern half of the nation. A stalled front stretching from the Carolinas up through New York is dumping heavy rain across the southeast, with Florida's Hollywood area seeing flash flood warnings after 6 inches fell in just 4 hours. The National Weather Service is forecasting another 2 to 4 inches overnight, pushing totals toward a rare 10-inch deluge by morning. This isn't a one-off. Humid air from the Gulf is fueling the downpour, a pattern reminiscent of Hurricane Helene's 2024 rampage, which left $10 billion in damages. For residents, it's a scramble. Roads like I-95 are clogged, schools in Miami-Dade are closed tomorrow, and power outages hit 50,000 homes as transformers fail under the strain. Economically, this hits hard. Florida's citrus industry, already bruised by last year's storms, could lose $200 million if groves flood, while insurance claims are expected to spike, driving premiums up 15% next year in a state where 1 in 3 homes lacks coverage. Moving north, the Mid-Atlantic's bracing for gusty winds up to 40 mph, with Philadelphia and Baltimore seeing downed trees and scattered outages. Think 20,000 homes dark by midnight. This ties to a cold front clashing with warm Atlantic air, a setup that's brought similar windstorms in September 2019, when D.C. lost power for 48 hours. Socially, it's a disruption. Commuters are rerouting, and emergency lines are buzzing with 911 calls about fallen limbs. The economic toll? Utility repairs could run $50 million, a cost passed to ratepayers, while port delays in Baltimore, handling $70 billion in annual cargo, could slow goods like auto parts, nudging inflation slightly. Contrast that with the West, where unseasonably warm temperatures are baking the region. Phoenix hit 105-degree cars, 12 degrees above normal for mid-September, part of a heat dome lingering since August that's taxed the power grid with record air conditioning demand, 3,000 megawatts above average. California's Central Valley isn't far behind, with Fresno logging 98 degrees, stressing water reserves already down 20% from drought carryover. Historically, this echoes the 2020 heatwave that sparked wildfires and killed 300. Today's fire risk is moderate, but crews are on edge. Socially, it's a health crisis. Hospitals report 150 heat stroke cases statewide, mostly among outdoor workers, while schools push virtual learning to avoid midday heat. Economically, agriculture takes a hit. California's $50 billion farm sector could see $1 billion in losses if irrigation falters, and energy costs are soaring, with PG&E projecting a 10% rate hike. Up in the Great Lakes and Northeast, it's a different story. Above normal warmth, with Detroit hitting 82 degrees and Boston 79 degrees, defying the usual autumn cooldown. This is driven by a high-pressure ridge, a pattern seen in 2012's record warm September, when Lake Michigan's water temps stayed in the 70s, boosting tourism but stressing fish stocks. Today, beachgoers linger on Lake Erie, pumping $5 million into local economies, but ecologists warn of algal blooms if the warmth persists. Socially, it's a mixed bag. Folks enjoy the late summer vibe, but allergy seasons extend, with 10% more asthma cases reported in Cleveland. Economically, the upside is retail. Outdoor gear sales jump 8% as people extend patio season. But the downside is energy. Heating delays save $200 million but shift costs to winter. Now, let's zoom to the extremes. In the Rockies, a surprise early snow dumped 12 inches on Denver's foothills, closing I-70 and stranding 200 drivers, unusual for mid-September but not unheard of, like the 2013 storm that buried Colorado Springs under 18 inches. Ski resorts like Aspen are cheering, with early season prep saving $30 million in snowmaking costs, but ranchers face $50 million in livestock losses if pastures freeze. Socially, it's a community effort. Volunteers clear roads, echoing the pioneer spirit of the 1800s. In the plains, a derecho swept through Kansas, with 70 m-tom winds toppling grain silos, a $100 million blow to wheat farmers already reeling from last year's drought. This mirrors the 2020 Midwest derecho, which cost $11 billion, and today's recovery will test federal aid, with FEMA pre-positioning $500 million for disaster relief. The broader impact? Weather drives a $1.5 trillion U.S. economy segment. Agriculture, energy, tourism, all feeling the pinch or boost. Historically, September extremes like 1900's Galveston hurricane, $30 billion in today's dollars, shaped disaster policy. Today's events push for climate adaptation, with $100 billion in federal infrastructure funds debated in Congress. Socially, it's resilience. Communities rally, but disparities grow, with low-income areas in Miami hit hardest by floods. For you, it's personal. Higher food prices if crops fail, pricier insurance if storms multiply, or a rare ski day if snow holds. As this weather saga unfolds, it's a reminder of nature's power and our shared stakes. Stay tuned as the forecast evolves.